So the next question is, what are the Shastras? So we need to ask this question when Badarayana is writing these kind of sutras, or when Badarayana or Vedavyasa is writing Bhagavad Gita. Let's not forget, people say Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita. Let me remind people that Bhagavad Gita was actually composed by Vedavyasa, who is of course Narayana's incarnation himself. But we need to have that in the back of our mind, that Vedavyasa has written the Gita. We are told as said by Krishna. So when we read Bhagavad Gita, or when we read Bhagavatam, or when we read sutras, we should be thinking, what is Badarayana thinking? What is Vedavyasa thinking? That is what many acharyas have done when they have done these bhashyas, to look at these sutras. Now here is a question. Why did Vedavyasa not say Veda Yonitvad? Why did he say Shastra Yonitvad? Yeah, that is a question that comes there. Anybody wants to contribute to it? Why did he not? He could have said, you can know the creatorship of Brahman only through the Vedas, because Upanishads talk about this quite a lot. But he didn't say that. He said Shastra Yonitva. Any guess or any considered answers there?
I felt when I read this that Vedavyasa wrote the Shastras. I mean, he divided the Shastras as per Narayana told him. I mean, he is Narayana himself, you said. So he made it into Shastras. So that's why I think, Vedas, because Vedas is only perceived by the mind, isn't it? Not in the books.
So it's Vedas. So Vedas is the final authority.
Yeah,
So
it's
there is
only
no
the final
going
authority.
beyond that. So if the Vedas say something, we would accept it, and that this is authoritative. So I accept your response, Shilaji. So in a way, why he has not written Veda Yonitvad but Shastra Yonitvad is to give this broad outlook of the philosophy, not confining yourself just to the Vedas, because our Sanatana Dharma not just has Vedas. Upanishads, of course, is part of the Vedas. Then you have the Gitas. Then you have the Puranas. Then after Puranas, you have so many works that are there. So Veda Vyasa is telling that there is so much work. You can get that knowledge of Brahman through so much of work that out there, that one should not necessarily limit oneself to the Vedas. It is to give us the broad outlook that he is saying Shastra Yonitva. Okay, what is Shastra? If you look at Shastra, Shastra and Shastra are not too different from each other. What is a Shastra? Shastra is a weapon or an instrument that you use to do something. So similarly, what is Shastra? It is an instrument to know God. Yeah. So Shastra and Shastra are not too different from each other when it comes to the meanings of those words. So Acharya Madhva in Tattva Nirnaya, there is a work called Vishnu Tattva Nirnaya, where he would say, Sadagamaika Vigneyam Samatita Kshara Aksharam Narayanam Sada Vande Nirdosha Asesha Sadgunam. So he would say Sadagamaika Vigneyam. Okay, so that word is important. Sada, Agama, Eka, Vigneyam. So there are so many components to that word, Sadagamaika Vigneyam. And of course, I never tried saying that is what makes Sanskrit such a beautiful language of splitting it. So Sada Agama. So that becomes the first two words that I've underlined in black. What is Sadagama? Sadagama is Sad Agama. Sad Agama means the authentic Agamas. Okay. Sada Agama means always Agamas. Eka means it stresses importance or primary sources only from Sadagama. Okay. When I say Sadagamai Eka, Vigneya means you can know him. Okay, you can know him as Samati Daksharaksharam, etc. etc. So Sada Agama is the only way of knowing the Supreme, and that Sadagamas are called the Shastras. What are those Sadagamas? Brahmanda Purana has discussed this, and we have discussed this several times. Rigadya, Bharatam Chaiva, Pancharatra Mata Akhilam, Mula Ramayanam Chaiva, Puranam Cha Etad Atmakam, Yeche Anuyayinastesham Sarve Teja Sadagamaha. And I've underlined that in red line because that is so important. And I put some attention there as well. Attention, please, for this. And we need to be very careful when somebody claims from some text of their liking that this is what it is. You should always go back to the Moolas and see whether that evidence is always there. So, what are Rigadyas? You have Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharvana Veda. Then you have Bharata. Bharata means Mahabharata. Then you have Pancharatra Agama. Pancharatra Agama are key texts. There are voluminous texts, and that particularly becomes very important in Vishishta Advaita and Dvaita schools of Vedanta to stress a lot on Pancharatra Agamas. Then you have Mula Ramayana. Note, I've said Mula Ramayana, not Valmiki Ramayana. Valmiki Ramayana is a story. It is not philosophy. There is an entirely different work called Mula Ramayana, which is philosophical. Yeah. So these 7 becomes the core. So these 7 always they talk about the Supreme. Now Puranas, we know there are so many Puranas. Which is a Sadagama among Puranas? Those Puranas that concur with the above 7 are Sadagamas. Now anything else that is available that concurs with the Sat Puranas and the Sadagamas of the 7, they also become Sadagamas. Okay. Now, the fact that we are discussing today with PowerPoint slides with some text which are quite authoritative itself makes this PowerPoint slides an agama. That is also a sadagama. So it is to give you this broad spectrum and approach to Shastra that Veda Vyasa actually says Shastra Yonitvat, but does not confine himself just to the Vedas, because there is lots of work that is available at our disposal. It is just that we are not making that effort to access those gems that are out there that give us the knowledge of the Supreme. Now, the attention, please, I need to come back and reinforce that anything that is said about Vedantic philosophy, or this is the philosophy of the Vedas, if anybody tells that, we should not be afraid or we should not feel shy to ask them, is this based on Vedas, Mahabharata, Pancharatra, Mula Ramayana? Does it concur with that? And of course, the Brahma Sutra is the supreme code for all the 7. Does it concur with Brahma Sutras? Does it concur with all these 7? If it concurs, then I'll accept what you say is right. So we should always use that instrument of actually assessing and checking the validity of what somebody else is claiming. Okay. This is the approach of the Vedantic philosophy as to how you do an informed decision making, just like how we do in our professional lives. HinduKnowledgeAcademy.com will celebrate Vedic culture and present its philosophies to the modern Hindu in an accessible format. Our ancient heritage is our greatest strength. Through preservation and dissemination, together let us spread positivity in the world. Thank you for listening and welcome to Hindu Knowledge Academy.